All right, good evening, everyone. From beautiful downtown Guthrie inside Guthrie City Hall, hello and welcome to this evening's candidate forum for the Republican race for House Representative District 31, hosted by the Greater Guthrie Chamber of Commerce. I am Brittany Timmons, President and CEO of the Guthrie Chamber, and I am joined this evening with Mr. Chris Evans with GuthrieNewsPage.
Thank you, Brittany. Just a reminder, we are streaming this on GuthrieNewsPage, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as the Chamber Facebook page. We want to remind the folks in our audience a couple of things first. First, if you would help us by liking and sharing this forum so that your friends and neighbors can be well aware of as well as informed. And thank you for your attendance. Also, if you would please remember to silence your cell phones.
Invitations were sent out to all candidates in this race. Two of the three candidates agreed to be with us this evening. Candidate Karmin Grider was invited multiple times to this evening's forum, but informed us that she did have a previous commitment with this evening.
Yes. The format of tonight's 60-minute forum, or less, we won't go over that, will allow candidates up to 2 minutes for an opening statement. Afterwards, we will share questions and allow the candidates up to 2 minutes for their responses. Also, 30 seconds for any rebuttal if they wish. Candidates, if you have a rebuttal, just simply raise your hand and we'll let you get your final 30 seconds in there. Candidates will also have 2 minutes for their closing statements. The topics and questions this evening have been submitted by members of our community. These questions have not been shared with the candidates prior to this evening.
Also, before we begin, I do want to add that we feel at the Chamber this is a really important thing for us to do to inform our community of who they're voting for and who they'd like to vote for. And so I just wanted to say thank you and for allowing us to serve the community in that way. A lot of times, you know, people think that the Chamber is just for the business community, and as you know, it is very important to the business community. Our partnership is also with the citizens of our community as well. So I just want to say thank you, and we're honored to be able to host this evening.
And also, it's time now to meet our candidates. First over here is Logan Trainer and Collin Duel. Thank you both for being here this evening and taking our questions. Public forums like this are very, very important, so we get to meet you and know where you stand. And so I can't stress how important these are, and we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
All right, we begin the candidate forum with opening comments. We drew numbers before the forum officially began to decide who would go first. And Collin, you will start us off.
Sure. I'll first start off just by thanking the Chamber and Chris Evans and the Guthrie newspaper, as well as everybody who took the time to come out and watch this forum. I think it's important that the public knows who's running and be able to make an informed decision. I think to everybody who's watching online, on whether it's streaming on YouTube or whatever streaming platform there is. I'd also like to thank my wife and daughter, Hannah and Eleanor, and my son, Aaron, for coming out and supporting me in this, as well as my mom. Mom's here too, so hopefully I do well. Well, I'll just introduce myself. My name's Collin Duel. I was born and raised here in Logan County. Hopefully you guys heard all that. I was born and raised here in Logan County, grew up going to Guthrie Public Schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. My wife as well, we're both from here. After high school, I enlisted in the United States Army, and I served about 4.5 years in a special operations unit. I was a team leader for my last 2 deployments, and I had 4 total deployments, all to Afghanistan. Once I got out of the service in 2013, I used the GI Bill to go to college, and then I went on to law school after that. Immediately upon graduating law school, I started my own practice here in Guthrie, just a small town practice. We're members of Life Church, where my daughter serves on the Life Kids team, and I serve on the host team. And just running for this position because I genuinely care about where our state's headed. And if not for us, but for the next generation, I want to make sure that we're able to preserve those traditional conservative values and make Oklahoma an environment to instill those values in that next generation so that we can carry it forward.
All right, thank you. Logan?
Hey, good evening. My name is Logan Trainer. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and this has been a phenomenal experience. I want to thank Chamber for putting this on out here in Guthrie, and everybody for being here tonight. You could be anywhere, but you're here, and those that are watching this via live stream, thank you guys so much for your attention and time. This has just been a phenomenal experience, just getting out here and having the opportunity to serve the people in the best way possible. For me, growing up in Texas, I grew up in a Christian conservative household. So we saw our parents walk the Word of God out in front of us. And after I graduated from University of Texas at El Paso, it was a matter of just hitting the road, wanting to pursue a career in film. That last year at University of Texas at El Paso, you got to take a fine arts credit. I fell in love with the stage and did the cliche, pack the car up and head out west. But you get out there and you're a little bit struck in a way in terms of the type of movies that are being made. It's not the same today as it was back then, the type of films that I fell in love with. And ended up relocating to Seattle, took a position there, and was working for UPS for 3 years. And I think that's when my political journey started for me. Being right there in the heart of the city, seeing Chaz Chop happen, seeing a whole different mindset in terms of liberal progressivism in its radical form. Seattle was on the news every single night during 2020, and it left an indelible impression in my mind in terms of the power of policy, and that if you don't have the right people representing you, it could be very detrimental. So when I knew that I'd be leaving, one of the main criteria for me was to type in the search engine, what is a red estate in the U.S.? And it came down to South Dakota and Oklahoma. The only reason why I didn't go to South Dakota is the annual forecast. This Texan just can't handle that kind of cold. Oklahoma came up, and we had some buddies from church that actually recommended Edmond in particular. And we got down here, and immediately I told my wife, I don't know what I need to do, but I want to serve the community. When you have kids, when you've been in that kind of environment, it does something to you because you see firsthand policies left unchecked, especially those that aren't from a Republican conservative nature. They all kind of was the same result: Minneapolis, Baltimore, New York City, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Portland. States like Oklahoma, more so Oklahoma City, were a beacon of light, a beacon of hope. And I see things like hashtag Choose Guthrie around historic town Guthrie. In a way, it was kind of like we chose Oklahoma because we saw it in terms of what even some of the residents don't see when you have that ability to look at it from a different angle and appreciate just its conservatism base, its Republican base. It's what makes this state so phenomenal. So in that regard, I thought to myself, how could I best serve the community? When I found out this position was becoming available, I thought that'd probably be the best possible way that I could serve the community. So here I am today, and that's what brings me wanting to serve the people in this race.
Thank you, Logan.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Collin, tell us why you want to be elected to the House and represent the people of District 31.
Sure. Well, I touched on it a little bit before. It's, you know, we got the next generation. I have a young daughter and an even younger son, and I want to be able to look them in the eye and tell them that I've done everything that I can to keep Oklahoma a place where it's conducive to raising them and instilling certain values in them. Those values such as individual rights and individual responsibilities, hard work, work ethic. I want to leave Oklahoma a better place than when I found it. It's a saying that we've used in the military. I think it's used in the Boy Scouts too. But whether it was leaving a range after a long day shooting, we would police the range, clean it up, and leave it better than when we found it. And that's what I want to do with Oklahoma for the next generation.
Okay, thank you. Logan?
Yeah, for me, like I said, it was a matter of just realizing that I would like to be represented in the way that I wasn't able to when I lived in a different place. And I understood firsthand the power of policy, the power of having good conservatives who understand the Constitution, but more so they understand the spirit of the Constitution. We're talking about freedoms and liberties, these things that were, depending on where you lived in, were kind of given up in a very quick manner, and not knowing that once you give those liberties up, they don't come back. Oklahoma already has that in place, and for me, it was a matter of how do we have more patriots who love God, love our country, represented at the state legislature level. And I felt like this opportunity was probably the best opportunity I could do in terms of being a true public servant, a servant leader, leading in a way that I, like myself, would like to be led. And I thought it's been a phenomenal journey since then.
Thank you.
All right, our next question will start with Logan. Logan, how do you plan to build relationships to accomplish your goals at the Capitol and to work with as many groups as possible?
Well, I think it comes natural to me. I haven't been here that long, but at the same time, just to see the sheer amount of relationships that have been developed since starting this, even before then, even before the pursuit of State House representative, when we got here last January, I'm a natural, very sociable person, and I like relationships, the building of it, but more so the enduring part of relationships. I think before policy, what shapes really good policy is having really good relationships. Having open lines of communication with the community is extremely important, and sometimes you have to set aside any type of title and treat people the way you want to be treated. And throughout my lifetime, that's always been a major cornerstone in terms of the power of relationships and why you have to keep nurturing them. And then when you have a great relationship in the community, it has a better way of shaping a clearer, better, more impactful type of policy that everybody can benefit from.
Thank you. Same question to you, Collin.
Yes, well, you know, I've been building relationships in this area my whole life. It just came natural as me being from here and learning who all lives in this community, what businesses are here in this community, and understanding what's important to those people and the values that they have. This is where I learn my values, and I share those with a lot of those that live here. As far as when I get to the Capitol, if I'm blessed to have gone there, I'll take aspects, whether it's from my military time, learning how to work well with others in order to accomplish a goal or a task. And now that as an attorney, there's a lot of relationship aspects in terms of moving a case forward. You're working with the opposition, but you have to be cordial. That's the only way to reach and end a goal that everyone is in my realm, most everyone's always upset with the end goal, but if I go to the Capitol, we hope to reach an end goal where everyone's pleased with what we've done for the state. So even if you might be representing different values than maybe someone else down at the Capitol, I think it's important to be able to build those relationships, work well with those people so that we can create a better place here in Oklahoma.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Collin. And this question kind of goes hand in hand with the question above, but it's a little bit different. How do you plan to engage and work with local government officials such as city and county governments, police, fire, and our local chamber?
Absolutely, and that's, you know, fundamentally from the ground up. Local government is one of the most important aspects of our government in these United States. Most people get hung up that what's going on in different states or what's going on at the federal level. But as far as impacts that can be made immediately and the most important ones, it's done at the local level. So it's important to know who's on the city council and be able to communicate with those people. Know who the 3 county commissioners are and be able to communicate with those people. So I plan on being able to continue that dialogue that I've established, you know, over the past 3 years being a local attorney here. And meeting those individuals. I'll just continue more of that, and this time be in a certain position where I can help them make an impact here in Logan County.
Thank you. Logan?
Yeah, for me, it's very similar with the previous question. It's a matter of really understanding relationships and making those first points of contact, whether it be police chief, you know, fire chief, city council, city mayor. It's extremely important. Just like with the community, at the end of the day, those said individuals I just said, they also are part of the community. So whether they have the title, whether it's just a citizen, those relationships are so essential in order to make better and effective policy to where, whether it be grown adults to children, have a better place to live in. So that would be one of the first things I would do, actually, even before anything to do at the state legislature level, at the Capitol, would be establishing quality relationships, hearing where they're coming from, what are the pain points, what are their needs, what are their wants, you know, and then from there, having open dialogue, open discussion, and then making it a routine monthly, you know. Like I said, I'm a big believer in just constant, clear communication. I don't believe in over-communication. I mean, I don't believe you can over-communicate. I believe it's a very good thing that way people are always on the same page, whether it be municipality, citizens, business owners, everybody's understanding where everyone's coming from. It's paramount.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Logan. What are your thoughts on how to adequately fund rural emergency medical care ambulance service? Currently, constitutional article allows up to 3 mills, which was established in the early 70s and really hasn't allowed with the inflation time. To increase the mills would require a state question to amend the Constitution. Fire districts have up to 10 mills. I know the city of Guthrie is looking at billing ambulance services, and it's a big deal across the state. But your thoughts on how to fund rural emergency medical services?
Yeah, I think it was one of those scenarios to where I would definitely, kind of like the first two questions, have to sit down and talk to those that are in the positions of leadership within the respective field to really understand how we got to this point, you know, like you mentioned in the 70s, to where we are today and then where we're headed. I'm a big believer in just saying, if you don't know something, to let the person know and then make sure you go delegate it to the proper people who do know. There's no way that anybody can know the answers to everything, but I do believe that there's power in always being open to receive advice, especially those that have more of a tenured experience in the said field, to share that with you and then be open to make decisions based off of that. But I would go about it in that particular manner.
Same question, Collin.
Yeah, I believe that it was maybe 5 to 10 years ago the legislature created a revolving fund that would help contribute to the rural EMS services. So I would make sure that that fund is appropriately funded, and I would work with our local officials here to make sure that they're seeking maximum contributions from that fund in order to appropriately fund our rural EMS services. I know that it's a major issue that this state's been facing recently, and I think that we've faced it a few years in the past too. It seems like a continual issue, so it may take a state question. But as far as what I could do as a legislator, I would to work with local officials to make sure they're seeking out those funds from that legislatively created revolving fund.
Thank you.
Next question, we will start with Collin. Gun control continues to be a daily discussion among all Americans. Where do you stand on gun control, restrictions, and reform?
Yeah, well, it's come up in our society again and again because we've seen tragic shootings. You saw them in Uvalde and then even here in Tulsa, and they are tremendously tragic, and my heart goes out to those people, and I hope to never face something like that. But I don't think that our initial reaction should be to increase the level of gun control in our citizens. We just had an opinion come down from the Supreme Court today, the Bruin opinion, that Justice Clarence Thomas wrote for the majority. And he said that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. That means that your Second Amendment right is the same as your First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, you name it. So I would not be for increasing any level of gun control. And I've received an AQ rating from the NRA, and that's the highest rating that the NRA gives a candidate who is not an incumbent, and I'm proud of that. As a father to my daughter and my young son, and as a husband to my wife, I have a God-given right and responsibility to protect my family, and I wouldn't do anything to limit that right for myself or for others.
Thank you. Logan?
You know, I think it's important to understand that when it comes to Second Amendment, it's one of those, it's an amendment that at the end of it says shall not be infringed. And I believe it means what it says and says what it means. I'm actually an advocate for those that are able to pass a background check, the already existing norms that are already here right now for any gun store you go to purchase a firearm legally. I'm all for it. I think it's something that's already set in place. My biggest deal is trying to understand the mental illness aspect of these scenarios that have happened in the past. Everybody that I've talked to on the campaign trail, it's always an issue that gets brought up, especially within the last couple of weeks, of the mental illness part. And I'm always, what I'm curious about is there's already things set up in place within Oklahoma law in terms of who cannot purchase a firearm, and it mentions mental illness. So it's already set up in place in such a way that I'm already in agreement with it, but I am acknowledging the fact that there is an issue when it comes to the correlation, the high correlation between these mass shootings that are unfortunate and the mental illness aspect of the said shooter involved. But I'm a big advocate as well for not only law-abiding citizens being able to obtain firearms, but in a very swift manner. I think if you walk in there that day, I think you should be able to walk out with a firearm that day. It's extremely important. It says shall not be infringed. I knew firsthand in Seattle just how important the Second Amendment is. And I also understood how when you're not able to get a firearm in time, what happens in terms of BLM or Antifa going into neighborhoods, wanting you to get out of your house or demanding that you come out of your house and that they deserve that house. Well, when you've already defunded the police and you already have low police morale and they've already started to leave, you begin to think about the Second Amendment a lot more seriously and you become a lot more appreciative of it. And that's how I feel about the Second Amendment.
Thank you. Our next question will stay with gun weapons here. We'll start with Logan. With U.S. Congress set on passing red flag laws on guns, what is your stance on red flags law in Oklahoma?
We don't need red flag laws. My stance is it's not necessary, and I don't agree with it. I love Oklahoma from a standpoint of when I got here and shipped my firearms the legal way and did everything legally and went to a gun shop to go pick them up, I asked them immediately, where's the local sheriff's office? Because I know in other states that's what you do. And they said, well, why would you need to know that? And I said, because, you know, I want to get my concealed carry permit. And they said, you don't need that here. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, this is a constitutional carry state, Logan. And I said, well, praise God, I'm home. You know, I mean, that's a phenomenal, and I believe Indiana just was the latest state today, if I'm not mistaken, 25th, to implement and adopt constitutional carry laws. So I'm a firm believer in that. I don't believe in the red flag laws, and I believe we need to keep Oklahoma protected the way it is right now with its Second Amendment constitutional carry.
Thank you, Logan. Colin?
Yeah, I don't support red flag laws either, and they actually turn due process upside down on its head, meaning that the government or some entity is able to take away one of your rights, and then you have to have the burden of proving something to get that right back. I don't support red flag laws for firearms, and I wouldn't support it for any other right. It would be absurd for the government to be able to tell you that you can't say something until you prove something else. When you use logic to address these situations, it becomes clear how absurd a red flag law actually is. I think Logan hit on an important point in the last question, though, that our state should be looking into the mental health issue that a lot of these people face, and we should be condemning violence in general, all violence, not just firearm violence. People use vehicles, people use bombs, people use knives to commit violence. So it's more of a hard issue rather than a tool issue. A firearm's just a tool. It's the person that's using it that needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. We'll start with Collin. Oklahoma is experiencing a record shortage of teachers in public education classrooms. Once again, neighboring states such as Texas are buying up billboard space in our state to entice educators to relocate across state lines. What strategies would you support to reverse this trend and get more quality teachers in our classrooms?
Sure. Well, my wife, she's a first grade teacher in the public school system, so we know kind of up close and personal some of the issues that teachers face in public schools. The fact of the matter is that the common education is the largest budget item that a state appropriates money for. So while I'm all for having great teachers here, we need to develop them from within. Whether that's teaching kids from K through 12 what it means to be a teacher and instilling that pride in being a teacher. I know that I'm proud of my wife for being a teacher. And then when you get to the college level, just telling them how important it is to give back to your community, to stay within Oklahoma, encourage them to remain here as they teach.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think teachers are essential in any state, especially in Oklahoma. And I think the real gist of, the solution to that particular question is you need to sit down with the teachers and have a real thorough conversation about all the pain points and about what it is they see, free from any kind of outside judgment or influence that would influence their responses in a less than honest way, I would have a long sit down with the teachers and try to understand where they're coming from and what would it take in order to retain them. I'm very much a business-minded person. I'm very much a person that understands that we are all motivated in different ways, and you have to be able to sit down and talk to people in a way that you find out what is it that's motivating them and how can we, really touch upon that incentivization process. Obviously, Texas is having billboards in Oklahoma, as you mentioned. They're obviously saying what I'm saying in terms of they're seeing something that maybe people in Oklahoma aren't seeing. So once again, it'd be a great opportunity to sit down with the teachers and figure out what's going on within all school districts of Logan County. Because what's going on in this part of the district is going to be a little bit different than what's going on in this part of the district. But nonetheless, it's imperative that we have to sit down and understand where they're coming from and what we need to do to correct the solution.
Thank you.
We'll stay with education. One more question on here, and we'll start with Logan. One of the most hotly debated topics in the past legislative session was school vouchers. Do you support allowing public funds to be placed into entities that are unregulated and lack transparency required of most public schools?
Well, as far as the last part, can you repeat that? Unregulated and lack transparency?
Do you support allowing public funds to be placed into entities that are unregulated and lack transparency required that most public schools are?
I think that's a great question. And the end is it's kind of muddy because there may be more information that I don't know as far as the entities that are being funded. Once again, I would have a conversation with more so the parents this time to figure out exactly what their options are. I'm a big believer in having choices, and the more options you have, the better decision you can make. It wouldn't be necessarily up to me, it'd be more so a consensus of the people. If they feel that, having those vouchers using public funds is more beneficial for students, i.e. their own sons and daughters, and that there's a major consensus in that regard throughout the county, then that's something to really consider and move forward on. If not, then maybe we take a different approach, kind of like the last question, and we focus on public school.
Thank you. Collin?
Yeah, I think that a parent is fundamentally charged with raising their children, and a part of that is deciding where or how they are educated. So I definitely support giving a parents the ability to choose where and how their kids are educated, and I would support facilitating that discussion. We saw the voucher plan, or this latest plan, fail, so I don't know what the most appropriate way to accomplish that is, but I definitely would support a discussion to move forward with allowing a parent the ability to choose how and where their kids are educated, as well as making that process as transparent as possible.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Collin. Lately, the Oklahoma legislature has gotten the habit of passing laws that they know or should have known are unconstitutional. This wastes millions of taxpayer money defending these laws. Will you, as a candidate, oppose bills that are simply for political purposes if they are clearly unconstitutional?
Absolutely, 100%. I pride myself on having studied the Constitution and continually to read it, and I think it's absurd that some legislators might use the political process to move forward with something that is partisan in nature, or they know that it's unconstitutional. I think that if you're taking on this role as a legislator, you're charged with promulgating laws that are constitutional, and you should be the first line of defense in form of an unconstitutional law, rather than just passing something and saying, oh, we'll let the courts figure it out, and then the state, the AG's office, whomever it may be, is charged with litigating something that they believe to be unconstitutional too, but since the state legislature had passed this, they're somewhat required to do so. So I would never pass a law that I know to be unconstitutional, or vote for a law that I know to be unconstitutional. I think that you're violating your oath.
Thank you. Logan?
Yeah, I fully agree. The Constitution is the greatest document governing any land and in history. and it's something that needs to be fought for and protected thoroughly. And the moment any legislature isn't doing that, they need to be replaced with someone who can and who does uphold, defend, protect the Constitution. So I'm a firm believer in also being transparent with the constituents when these particular bills come up, and let them know this is what's going on. This is my nature on this. How do y'all feel about this? I think sometimes we get in the habit as a legislature, and then we go on. But for me, it's always going back to the community, going back to the district, because ultimately that's who elected you. And they were ensuring that you were going to uphold, protect, and defend their constitutional rights. So it's not just me saying, no, I'm not going to vote on something that's unconstitutional. It's also letting the constituents know and having those clear lines of communication that this is what's going on, this is what's in this bill, and this is what they're not saying.
Thank you.
So far, we've asked questions for both of you to discuss. Now we'll have one question each for each of you on your specific campaign. And I will ask the question for you, Logan, here. You're new to District 31 in Oklahoma just after moving into the district. What gives you the confidence that you know what your constituents want to see?
Oh my goodness, it's a great question. The doorsteps. There's no better way to talk to people than at their doorsteps. Let alone if they say, come on in, Logan, let's take a seat. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you understand exactly where they're coming from. And what happens is over time, you start to develop a consensus of the pain points of the constituents and the things that need addressing that others might have said they were going to address and never did, or new problems that have arisen in the last couple of years. So that's the important thing for me, and that's what I've learned, that's what I've gathered. Like you said, I haven't been here that long, but at the same time, one thing I have realized, I might not be from Oklahoma, but I'm from the United States. And for those that love this country, we all have a shared common passion. Doesn't matter if you're in Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Washington, Oklahoma. If you love this country and understand those that fought, protected it for our freedoms and liberties, it doesn't take too long to realize that we're all pretty much saying the same thing. And at that point, it's a matter of really being confident in knowing that what I'm saying is what they're saying, what they're saying is what I'm saying, and we have a very clear path to victory as long as that mutuality and that communication has been established.
Thank you.
Okay, Collin. Residents in District 31 have seen numerous political mailers in their mailbox supporting your campaign. Do you know the group or groups that are sending these mailers?
It depends on the mailer. If it says on the mailer authorized and paid for by Collin Duel or Friends of Collin Duel 2022, I approve every one of those. I always read some mailers that are in support of my campaign. I'll read and see who they're from, and one of them's Americans for Prosperity. So I look them up to figure out who it is. So that's about my extent of knowing them. And then another one's Oklahomans for like Federation of Children or something like that. And I don't know who either of those two are. And then there's been attack ads going against another one of our opponent that I guess they're paid for by independent expenditures. There's most people commonly know that as dark money. There's a Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, that say that companies have the ability or have free speech. And so you have companies out there who are putting out these negative attack ads on our opponent, and I definitely do not support or condone those, and frankly, I don't like it. I wish it would stop because it just portrays us in a bad light. So I don't know who those are coming from. I read the mailer on it. It said Common Sense Conservative LLC, and I immediately went to the website and called the number. The website was a one-page, looked like someone created it in 30 minutes, and the number went straight to voicemail because I wanted to immediately find out who it's coming from because it's not coming from me, and I don't support it, and I wish it would stop.
Thank you.
It's like you know my next question, so you
read
might
our
be able to
minds.
allude to it a little bit later, longer if you want to here in a second, but we'll start with Logan. And I thought I was going to ask the tough question, but you nailed it right before me there, Collin. In recent days, we've seen a negative mailer and a negative television ad attacking one of the District 31 candidates. The ads were paid for by Common Sense Conservatives, LLC. What are your thoughts on this sort of attack, and what were your feelings when you first saw them?
I don't even have a TV in my house. I mean, I don't watch TV. That's the honest truth. why would anyone want to watch TV?
Yeah.
But, you know, once again, you know, to piggyback on what Collin was saying earlier, and I've said this at a sit-down interview with you, I don't support it, I don't condone it. This is what turns a lot of people off that would be phenomenal candidates that want to get involved and represent the people well from not getting involved and running for office on any level. I've never condoned it. I don't even like using the term opponent. These are candidates. These are very well qualified candidates. I don't think people could lose which either direction they chose to go. It's one of those things that I've noticed in the campaign trail where they say, "Gosh, Logan, man, this is a tough year this year. You know, all three of you guys are just so good." And I say, yeah, I mean, it's an honor and it's a blessing, but at the same time, I've seen a relatively pretty, you know, relaxed and I guess respectful race. So I don't know what the campaign ads are. I don't know what they're saying, but I do say no. Just say no to dark money.
Collin, you kind of addressed it already, but more time if you like.
Yeah, I would just say that it's the negative ads, the attack ads are like DC-style politics where you're just attacking everybody, and that's not what Oklahoma's about. That's not who Oklahomans are. And I ran a 100% positive campaign, and I'm going to continue to do so. And that's all I can really do. The attack ads, they hurt everyone. They hurt the person they're attacking, and they hurt us because then you have constituents, potential constituents, who think that you're behind them. So they don't benefit anybody. But all I can do is continue to run a 100% positive campaign and use forums like this to try and get it out that I do not support them, I don't condone them, and I wish it would stop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll start with Collin. So far, we have discussed a variety of topics tonight. What topic or topics are important to you that you would like to further discuss that we may not have covered?
Oh goodness, that's a good
I
question.
know.
Now you got it like
Open-ended
no,
question.
Wow, that is a tough question. We talked a little bit about funding and whether it's schools, things like that. But as far as the roads and bridges here in Logan County, I know that you've heard it on the doorstep because I'm hearing it too. I think that that's a major topic that can be addressed in Logan County by working with the county commissioners, looking at the different forms of state funding that goes to the county roads and bridges. I know that ODOT has oversight of some of those funds, but there's other revolving funds that ODOT does not have oversight over. And I think that us as legislators, potential legislators, should take the necessary steps, communicate with the county commissioners, and make sure that they're able to maximize the amount of money they can get from those revolving funds.
Okay, thank you. Logan?
Yeah, I think we keep, I would say three in particular: religious freedom, medical freedom, and economic freedom. Economic would fall into place with roads and bridges in terms of the infrastructure and making sure that Logan County is set up in such a way to benefit from all the growth that's happening and is going to continue to happen over these next 5, 10, 15 years. It's happening as we speak. But also we want to remember medical freedom. And the fact is that if we don't address things like the freedom to not want to take a vaccine or wear a mask, and if we forget what happened just not even 2 years ago and how we just came out of that, but what did we learn from that? Did we understand that constitutional rights were being up for grabs, if you will? I think that needs to be addressed when it comes to the legislature. I think that needs to be addressed when it comes to any type of bill that's being passed in terms of ensuring that people have freedoms when it comes to their medical freedom, as well as their economic freedom. Cutting the red tape, cutting the regulations. I own my own business. I know what it's like to go through all the hassle and the regulations and the tax increases on the processes when you're going to open up a business. I think that needs to be addressed because the economic foundation of any community, outside spiritual foundation, is extremely important, and it has a lot to do with the growth and the betterment of the community in addressing questions that we just talked about earlier, like public schools and having the appropriated funds, or whether they become, with the rural those that need that particular attention from the rural medical supplies. I mean, that has a lot to do with money, and depending on how you appropriate that and the economic growth of your community is done, then those issues can be better addressed. So I would say those issues need to be constantly being talked about. Yeah.
Thank you. We'd use the Chamber and the Guthrie News Page forums to ask questions, and I got the last question. I'm honored that we were able to get all the questions asked today that were submitted by the community. And here's the last question submitted to us here. Today, we'll start with Logan first on this one. Today, multiple allegations, hearings, investigations, and lawsuits are happening involving Republican politicians both in D.C. and here in Oklahoma. Are you proud of the ethical performance being shown by your party? If no, how are you different?
Once again, is this on the TV?
I'm not sure. I read the question as is.
Either way you look at it, I mean, I think what you just saw with the Southern Baptist Convention, in the spotlight recently, don't condone any kind of behavior that's portrayed and comes off in such a way to where it does a disservice to the Republican Party. Be honest with you, to do a disservice to just who you are as a person. Let's put the party aside and let's just talk about individual responsibility and accountability. And I think we've moved far away from that in this current generation. And I think it needs to be addressed in terms of who you are as a person, how you carry yourself, whether you're a legislature or not, being respectful to one another, being kind to one another. If we get back to some of these basic issues that I take from the Bible, to be honest with you, you wouldn't have any of these issues or these topics about how the Republican Party is being represented. I don't condone anything that has a negative effect on the party. I think the Republican Party is a phenomenal party, and it lines perfectly with what I believe in. So, yeah.
Thank you, Logan. Collin?
Yeah, will you repeat the question?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I pulled it back up because I didn't remember it either. Today, multiple allegations, hearings, investigations, and lawsuits are happening involving Republican politicians both in the D.C. and here in Oklahoma. Are you proud of the ethical performance being shown by your party? If no, how are you different?
Well, to be honest, if it's talking about the January 6 hearings, I haven't been able to watch any of those because, like Logan, I'm sure you're knocking doors every evening, so it's hard to watch the news and keep up with it. But there's no reason for me to get into D.C. politics when I'm running for House District 31. As far as anyone's not representing conservative values, whether it's limited government, free market, individual rights, and advocating for those things, I think it hurts the Republican Party. But I don't know of any specific instance that the question's kind of alluding to, so it's hard for me to address something that I don't know about.
All right, thank you. We just want to be fair to all the questions that were submitted, so thank you for answering those. And that's all the questions we have for this evening. We want to allow a couple minutes for you to close out here this evening, and Collin, we'll let you have your 2 minutes of closing statements.
Well, again, thanks to the Chamber, thanks to the news page and GTV for streaming this and hosting this, and thank you guys all for coming out, and for everybody who's watching online, thanks for taking the time to do this. It's important. Thanks to my family for showing up and supporting me. I just want to say that I genuinely care about this district. Born here, raised here, I want to do my best to serve it. I've been serving most of my adult life, if not in the military, now as a local attorney, just trying to help people solve legal issues. So I want to continue that attitude of service, hopefully as your next state representative for House District 31. I want to stand for individual rights, and with those come to responsibilities. I want to push back against federal overreach. We saw a tremendous amount of federal overreach the past 3 or so years, but it's nothing new. It's been going on for some time. I want to stand against that. It's just those traditional Oklahoma conservative values that were instilled in me growing up here, whether it's by my dad, my family, whoever, that I learned throughout my life here. I want to go and represent those things and represent them in the state legislature. So I would ask that you vote for me June 28th when you go to the ballot box, or unless you're willing to go early and vote, go ahead and cast your vote for me, Collin Duel, for state representative for House District 31.
Thank you, Collin. Logan, 2 minutes.
Yeah, once again, thanks everybody for coming out. This has been a phenomenal experience just from the very get-go. The relationships that have been made are something that I will never forget, and I take it very seriously and I take it very personally. And I also want to thank you guys for hosting this, as well as you, Collin, being here and having the opportunity to just discuss important issues in the community. Overall, I think I get excited about Tuesday. And I'm hoping for everybody's vote who shares the same ways of thinking that I do, and hopefully that I can represent you in the best way possible. For me, it's always a matter of constitutional rights, liberties, freedoms, and everything that falls underneath those particular ideals, and representing America, more so Oklahoma, more so Logan County, in such a way that people can actually feel and realize that this guy actually cares about us. It's not the routine or, I guess, stereotypical politician. It's one that actually wants to come down to the level and understand that ultimately he's only here because of the constituents, and that he never forgets that. And I tell you, I am giddy at the idea of being able to represent and serve everybody in the best capacity that I possibly can. Logan for Logan, that is the slogan. June 28th, Tuesday of next week, I would love your vote, and I would love to serve and represent you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give our candidates a nice round of applause. Thank you. Hey, I appreciate you guys' attendance. Again, public forums are very important to learn where you are, who you are, and where you stand. So I appreciate you taking time from the campaign trail to join us tonight and being here tonight. It means a lot. Thank you. Just a reminder to our registered voters out there that early voting did start today, and it continues tomorrow and Saturday at the Logan County Election Board office, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Friday tomorrow, or 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday. And of course, Election Day is Tuesday.
8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday.
On Saturday, yes. 8 a.m. Thank you. 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday. Of course, Election Day is Tuesday, June 28th, between 7 and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you have any questions, voter registration, any of that good stuff, I invite you to call the Logan County Election Board office at 405-282-1900.
All right, and I just want to close by thanking the city of Guthrie for allowing us to hold the event at City Hall. This is a beautiful building and space, and we are just very grateful for the partnership that the Chamber has with the city. Also want to thank Aaron Ryburn. If you see him out there or see him around town, he's with the city as well, and he provides all of our AV and streaming services, and he works really hard for us. So just thank Aaron if you see him. Also want to thank Chris for helping moderate tonight. I really appreciate that. And thank you all for taking time out of your evening to watch and participate in the forum. Like I mentioned earlier, it's super important that we are able to come together as a community and learn more about who we're putting in office and learn more about our candidates. So I just want to thank you all so much for tuning in. And one last thing, get out and exercise your vote. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your evening.